Hi, my name is Jennifer Mele. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm an independent consultant with Pampered Chef, and today is raining cats and dogs where I live, so I thought it's a great day for homemade apple pie. So I was going to make mini apple streusel pies, and it's super easy, and I thought I would show you how I do it. So I'm starting off with my pastry mat. This just kind of keeps everything easy to clean later, easy to roll out. I already have my pie crust made. I like to make it in big batches, and then I can freeze it in these discs. So I just put it in a circle, I measure out equal portions, wrap it in saran wrap, and then put it inside of a freezer bag. So I have my dough ready to go. I put down some all-purpose flour. When it freezes and it comes to defrost, I just left it on the counter while I was having my morning coffee. I just feels a little wet, and that's okay. So the flour is going to help with that. I think the wetness is just from the freezing process, but it's not a problem. My oven is preheating to 350 degrees. This is what my mini pie pan looks like. And I choose to use my marble rolling pin. I like the big heaviness of this. I gave away my wooden one when I purchased this through Pampered Chef because this is all I really need when it comes to rolling out. The weight of it really just takes a lot of the work out for me. And this is my baker's roller. I just have it on hand just in case, but I may not even need it. So I have my flour handy. Just gonna rub some on my rolling pin. I'm just going to roll it out. The mini pie kit comes with the circles to cut out what you would need for the bottom. I'm choosing only to make a bottom crust because I'm using the apple streusel for the top. I personally prefer the flavor of the streusel. You do what works for you. So this is what it looks like. These are actually all nested together. I have my biscuit cutters, which are smaller, in with my pie cutters. So the pie cutters are taller than the biscuit cutters, are easy for me to separate. This is the biscuit set. So it's just easier for me to store it in my cupboards because, you know, I have a lot of kitchen treasures, and so space is important. So we have the larger one for the bottom crust and the smaller one for the top crust. I'm only going to use the big one. So I just rolled it out. It's probably, I don't want it too thin. I would rather a slightly thicker crust. I did take out 2 crusts from the freezer just in case. Here we go. Oh, look at that. Almost. I'm going to start with 2. Now I double checked my directions and it says that I don't have to grease the pan, so I'm not even going to worry about that. Maybe because there's so much of the butter inside of the crust. So I'm gently putting it into my pan, and you notice that it hasn't gone all the way in. What I can do, this right here is my wooden dowel. I think, if I'm thinking correctly, it is now middle February. These might be discontinued by the end of February. So if you are into making small little tarts, I use it for everything. When I'm making cheesecake, it really helps to dampen down the graham cracker crust. So I'm just going to, I don't know if you can see how I'm doing that. If I use my fingers, my fingernail, they're not very long anymore, but they'll still poke a hole in the bottom. So this really helps with that. So I'll form it a little bit later. I'm not worried about that right now. And there's another circle. It's kind of like an assembly line like that. And if I find that I've been getting those phone calls all the time. I'm like, dude, I know how to find you. Back off, Jack. If I wanted a warranty, I would have asked for it by now. But I just ignore them. They'll eventually give up. Ooh. Okay, so when it starts to curl up around, I'm going to add some more flour, rub it. I'm gonna try to pull this down so you can see a little bit better. Ooh, thunders and lightnings and cats and dog raining. It's a good day to be inside. See, I was gonna go for a walk today, and Mother Nature had other ideas. Who am I to argue? Let's make pie. Okay, so I'm taking my cutter, and I have it, I would say, about a 1/4 inch thick. I adore my pastry mat. It's made out of silicone. My last one was made with like a plastic harder material, and this just, I can't even put it into words. I love the flexibility of it. I love the grip. Let's see if I can make that bigger. Maybe. Goodness gracious, I'm like just a hair's breadth away from one more. You know what? Let it go. I'm gonna put this aside. I'm never gonna get rid of it because honestly, pie crust, you could make little hand pies. You can use it with jam. You can use it with pie filling. I always have some on hand. And I'm not one to judge. You can buy your pie filling. They have a lot of good brands out there. Make your own. I've been teaching myself how to can, so it's been fun to learn new recipes. And then that way, like today, I'm using homemade apple pie filling. It's just in the cupboard. I don't have to take up freezer space, which is again at a premium in my house. All I did was put down the flour again on the top and the bottom, and I'm gonna roll it out again. Hi Lori. I hope you're having a good day. Here we go. Okay. Pie dough is pretty forgiving, so if it doesn't work out the first time, just keep on trying. Here's 1, 2. Look at that! I made all 3 with 1 crust. Okay. The extra pie dough I'm gonna save, and I'll make hand pies in the air fryer. But for now, I'm just gonna focus on one project at a time. Feels like Play-Doh. Okay. I'm gonna put aside my handy dandy pastry mat. Try not to spill flour all over the floor and give myself another project to do. So here I have my pie crusts. Just gonna use my tart shaper dowel. This works really good. It's one of those multi-purpose tools when I want to make mojitos. It helps me crush my mint in my glass. Here we go. Cool. And the neat thing about this pie pan is that it has like the edges that look like a flower, and that's gonna help mold the little pretty crust edges. There we go. I have a hard time making the pretty edges myself when it comes to the bigger pies, but these little, I don't know if you can see the little flower edges right there. See that? So I just push my fingers where those little indents are, and it pretty much does its own work for me. Work smarter, not harder. Here we go. I'll be topping this with a streusel and homemade whipped cream. I never realized how easy whipped cream is to make, so I'm going to show you how to do that too in just a minute. These are really good too with pecan pies and pumpkin pies. Portion control. It definitely changes the ratio of pie filling to pie crust, which is nice because if you have the big pie, especially with a pecan pie, you've got to let it cool down so that way it solidifies instead of like gooing all over once you make your first slice. So these individual ones I find are really great for dinner, holidays. I use it a lot. There we go. Almost finished. And if it doesn't quite reach the edges, you can kind of gently pull. There we go. I went out to my backyard the other day and I am happy to report that our mango tree still has blossoms on it. I'm crossing my fingers, and I would cross my toes if I could too, that this rainstorm we're having right now does not blow the blossoms off, because that's how we didn't end up with any mangoes on our tree last year because of a storm like this where it just blows through and wreaks havoc. Okay, so all I've done was just gently just use the edges to guide me. Wipe my hands off. And I have pie filling. This is really nice to have quick grabs like this, because there's some times that I want a dessert but I don't want to start from the very beginning. So that's why when I do make crust, I usually make enough for 5 crusts at once. And then that way I can freeze them, and it didn't take long. I took them out this morning I woke up about 6 o'clock, and they defrosted in plenty of time to still cook. So I'm a little shy of filling up to the very top with pie filling, and that's okay because I've actually already taken out double the ingredients for streusel. So let me show you what that looks like. You see that? So it's homemade apple pie filling, but again, no judgment. You use what you have, what you prefer. Quick and easy is usually the way to go. So if you have a can from the local grocery store, go for it. It's still going to be a homemade pie, it counts. So now that is ready to go. I'm going to make my streusel topping. I have here 4 tablespoons of butter. This is my small batter bowl. I'm going to need flour. One thing I do notice when people measure flour is they scoop their measuring cup into their flour. Hi, Amy. It's not good to do that way because it compacts the flour and you're not actually measuring accurately. So your best bet for measuring, this is the Measure All cup. Whatever measuring tool you happen to be using, today we're needing 1/2 cup of flour, which I knew, but I always have to double check. So I got 1/2 cup, and I'm just going to take my big old thing of flour and I'm spooning it into the actual measuring cup, because you don't want to scoop your flour when you measure. When I'm making homemade bread, I actually weigh my flour, because that's even more accurate than measuring with cups. But many American recipes call for this type of measurement. So I have 1/2 cup of flour, 4 tablespoons of butter, and I need some brown sugar, 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Man, it's coming down out there. Holy guacamole. My grass is saying, thank you, I was so thirsty. I'm actually growing some pie pumpkins. Back when they were on sale at the grocery store, I kept the seeds from my pie pumpkin and thought, you know what, I'm not gonna be out anything but time, so I I stuck a few in the ground and the vines are growing. This is a half a cup of brown sugar. This one you can actually compact. I could probably fit some more in there. One thing I didn't know when I first started learning how to cook was the difference between light brown sugar and dark brown sugar. Dark brown sugar just has more molasses, so it gives it a deeper flavor. You can't go wrong with it. It is more expensive and you get a smaller bag. Light brown is usually when something calls for brown sugar, they're usually meaning light brown unless they specify. So I have half a cup of brown sugar. I'm going to need some cinnamon, half a teaspoon. This is the adjustable measuring spoon, so it moves back and forth. Half a teaspoon of cinnamon. And just because I love the flavor, I'm gonna add some nutmeg too, because that just really screams apples to me. I'm gonna do a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg. Here we go. Put those away later. Have a fork. And just mix it together. The butter is going to make it crumbly. You can't go wrong with extra streusel on top. Almost. I'm just keeping going and still stirring, so if you can see it right now. It's starting to come together into a crumble, but there's still a lot that still has the texture of the flour, so I want to make sure I get all those crumbles in. Getting close enough. You know what I might do just for fun? I'm going to add a little more butter. Just to kind of help it hold together a little bit. Definitely. I like the texture now. So the cool thing about baking and cooking is that you follow the recipe, but you also have to go with your instincts too. And I didn't want to just put it on all loose like that. So now if you can see, it's starting to get a little bit more, I don't know the word for it, but it's holding together better. So I'm just going to portion it out. Let's see. You know, before I do this, this one has a little bit more pie filling. So just to make things fair, I just redistribute. Good to go. Okay. This will give it that little bit of crunch on top too. If you choose to make your apple pies with the cover on top, I highly recommend the mix and chop, which is the same tool that you would use to break up hamburger. That has the perfect shape for venting pie crusts. That's what I would use. Kind of makes like a little star on top. So I'm just going to pat it down to see where my empty gaps are. Today is a great day for pie. Every day is a great day for pie. Here we go. Looking good. Cool. So make sure it's all evenly distributed. Put my hands down so you can see it a little closer. That's what it looks like right now. And I look at my recipe again, and we're gonna try it for, let's see, we're gonna try it for about 30 minutes, okay? So pop it in the oven. I'll stay close by just to keep an eye on it. My oven runs a little warm. The temperature says it's the same temperature that it says, but it always cooks quicker than any recipe. So I just always start small and go bigger. Let me set the timer so I don't forget. Sometimes I have the attention span of a squirrel. I'm going to start with 26 minutes. Probably going to be about 30, but I'd rather check it early and add more time because you can't take it away. So I've made my apple streusel. We're going to make whipped cream. So I choose to use a bigger bowl. This is my standard size, my big batter bowl. It measures up to 8 cups. I've only put 2 cups of heavy cream inside of it because that's what I had, and you can always re-fluff it again if you need to, but whipped cream goes quickly in my house. So I have the heavy whipping cream. I'm going to need about a 1/4 cup of confectionery powdered sugar. And there have been times where I realized I didn't have enough powdered sugar for my recipe, so I put it in my deluxe cooking blender, like regular granulated sugar. I put it in my deluxe cooking blender, and it actually made powdered sugar from the regular table sugar that you would use. So, just a little bit of information. So now I'm going to put in vanilla. This is homemade vanilla, and it turns out vanilla is a lot easier to make. It's mad expensive when you look at the ounces that you're buying at a grocery store. So if you can get vanilla beans and vodka, then within, say, about 8 to 12 months, you will have your own homemade vanilla. This is a small jar that I use just for my baking needs. I also have a mother jar, which is a little bit bigger. It has the whole vanilla beans inside. You fill it with vodka. It's got to be about 80%, and you shake it every day, and you put it back in the cupboard. Make sure the beans are always covered, so if when you're pouring it out, the beans start to show. This is a mason jar. It's leak-proof, so I just put it sideways. This is another one that I've made with vanilla beans, but it's actually with rum. So I'm going to be able to see the difference between the two. And I actually have plans to make my own vanilla paste. And the difference being that vanilla paste doesn't take the 12 months for it to extract the flavors. It's all ready to go, and if it calls for a teaspoon of vanilla extract, you can use a teaspoon of vanilla paste. This one will actually, be in liquid form. You got to be careful of how much you use because it will thin out whatever you're making. With the vanilla paste, you won't have that problem. So about a teaspoon, maybe a little more for good luck. So you can whisk it by hand. They do sell whipped cream makers. I just use an immersion blender. If you have a hand blender or a KitchenAid mixer, just use the whisk attachment. It'll make quick work of it, and you'll never want Cool Whip again. And adjusting the amount of sugar is for personal preference. This sugar does sweeten it, but it also thickens it. So if you find it's not working and you're whipping it and it's still too thin, add some more powdered sugar. No one's not only gonna not notice, but they're just gonna be like, ooh, this is delicious, because of course, sweetness. So, the reason why I have it in a bigger bowl is because it will splash around a little bit. Which is why I'm wearing an apron too, so I don't have to wear my flour and cream all day. It's already starting to thicken up and I can see the air bubbles. I highly recommend keeping heavy cream on hand anyways, because it doesn't have to be for pie. I mean, what if you have it over a brownie, over ice cream, over, ooh, hot chocolate? So, and it keeps well in the fridge for a few days. Well, the cream itself actually stays in there for several weeks, just like you would for milk. Once I open it up, I put it in the bottom, in the back of the fridge, and I've never had a problem with it being used up in time. So, yeah, that's something, consider it a staple. You never know when you're gonna have a whipped cream emergency. See it? Now the trick when it starts to get in thick is to be careful to do it thick enough where it still holds its shape, but not so thick that it becomes butter. Because that's actually how you make butter, is to shake it until it... So what I do is I just pull it up. It makes those thick peaks. See that? So that's holding its shape pretty good. And it's gonna last in the fridge for a couple of days, just like this. There's times I've needed to stir it up. There's also times I just come out and just whip it one more time just to kind of refluff it. But honestly, between me and my husband, mostly Steve actually, he's got a sweet tooth, it doesn't last that long. So I just happen to make 2 cups of cream with it, so it's like a double batch. The 2 cups of cream, it's about 4 cups of whipped cream. So think of whatever cream you're using, it's gonna double in size by the time you aerate all the air. So that's it. I appreciate you joining me, and when the pies are finished, I will take a picture and share it with you to let you know how it goes. I hope you're having a great day, and if you want to see any more of my videos, I have them stored up on my YouTube channel also. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day. Bye.